So you had rejected Christianity as a belief system, the Bible corrupted, and so you were living in this world in England, and you had some anxiety, a little bit of issue with trying to figure out how to ground, your strong impulses of morality. Walk us on from there. Talk to us about what happened in your life. What made you stop and think, well, maybe there is something to this, to Christianity, to Jesus, to the Bible, all of that. What caused you to move in a different direction?
So it was interesting when I first moved there because, I had wanted to move to England my entire life since I was a child. And I loved British music, British culture, British history, the countryside. And so I had thought that by moving there, I would solve my problems. I thought, I wouldn't be worried about death anymore. I wouldn't be worried about all these things. I thought I would fit in a lot better. And I just thought it would answer a lot of my problems and challenges. And it was interesting because I got there and I described to the friends that I made, I was like, I feel like I've climbed a mountain only for there to be more mountains around me. Like I've climbed a mountain and now I'm in a valley. And I was so confused because I thought that was going to fix everything. And I felt so alone and empty. Um, that was a period of about 2 years though, where I just felt like that, where I was so confused. When that really started to shift, so I had made a friend at work who he was a Christian, wasn't practicing very much at the time, like went to church sometimes. I knew he was a Christian, but I didn't know too much about it. What happened was during the start of COVID, the lockdown got announced in England, and my housemate at the time took off, like just took off. I got home one day and everything was fine and normal. I go out to the grocery store. I was all excited. I found a grocery store that still had food because people were like raiding stores there. It was pretty crazy. And in the 20 minutes I was out, like he was like, I'm done. I can't do this. And like fled back to his parents' house. So I was really panicked and concerned because here I was in a foreign country working for the hospital system, not front lines, but still I had to go into the hospital every day. In a foreign country, not able to go back home. Canada had mostly closed the borders, and facing the prospect of spending the pandemic by myself. I was really scared. So my friend, he actually reached out to me and he said, hey, you know what, like this lockdown, it's only supposed to be 3 weeks. And why don't you come stay on my couch for that time? And we can kind of ride this out together. And so he had a place in the English countryside in the Peak District, just outside Manchester. And so I went one day after work to go stay with him because the rules were quite weird. So we basically went. He was like, "Kate, come over now before the lockdown gets announced, and then it's not like breaking quarantine rules." So I go to stay with him, and then one of the first nights I'm at his place, he says to me that he had wanted to start going back to church, but he couldn't because of the lockdowns, and so he was thinking about watching Zoom church. And so I thought, well, I'll be a good house guest. Like, I was like, I can watch church with you on Sundays. And so that first Sunday came around and we watched a Zoom church service from his living room. And I was really surprised because it wasn't what I thought it would be. And so I was like, that was actually kind of nice. And so the Sundays go by,
What did you think it would be? What were you anticipating a church service to look like?
I think I was maybe anticipating like what it was like growing up in Catholic school, where you're sitting cross-legged in a row in the gymnasium, watching a lot of kind of lectures that you can't quite really hear and you're not really sure how this relates to you and you're kind of thinking about anything but that. Yeah, just I guess I expected it to be a lot more kind of institutionalized, um, and not as personal. And so, and one of the things that even first struck me too is the music was really nice. I know now that they sing a lot of Phil Wickham songs, and I was like, oh, like the worship songs are really nice. This message, like this is really nice. And I don't even remember what the first few sermons I'd heard were on. Just that, I was like, oh, I was very surprised. I was enjoying it. And so my friend said to me after a couple of weeks, he was like, well, you're really enjoying this. Because we talk about the sermons afterwards as well too. He said, you're really enjoying this. Why don't you try reading the Bible? And so I downloaded a Bible app on my phone and I started reading the Bible on my way to work in the mornings. We had an hour and a half train commute each way, so I had a fair bit of time. But yeah, so, and there was one morning where I was reading Matthew 6 from the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus says to not be anxious. And when I read that, it was like Jesus was speaking to me. I never knew that Jesus could say something that spoke to me, that related to me. And that just really struck me. It spoke to exactly what I was feeling in that moment, what I was experiencing during COVID, and what I'd gone through in my life. And so from that, my friend suggested, hey, you should try an Alpha course. So I did an Alpha course, and that was really good for learning some of the fundamentals of Christianity. And, after that, there's not like a moment where I was like, oh, I became a Christian. I just know that there was a point where I started praying, I started putting my trust in Jesus.